Good morning, and welcome to Morning Perspective. Man, I have an incredible guest lined up for you guys today. His name is Keith Callaway, and I'm going to get to that in a second here. The title of today's show is What If Heaven Was Nothing More Than a New Pair of Glasses? And that is for good reason. That title is actually a chapter in the book that I have coming out, but literally the name of that chapter actually came from the man that I'm about to introduce you to here today. This guy started out as a client of mine in top contractor school and has become so much more than that in my life and the lives of so many. He is a business leader, a man of God, a son, a brother to many, an uncle to a handful, and just an all-around special human being that I am incredibly proud to call a friend. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Keith Callaway.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, man. So I can't be more excited, brother, to have you on this show and to give these people the gift that I get to experience quite frequently, which is, just having conversation with you and getting to hear your story. I'm just checking here to make sure that we got audio and everything set up, so it looks like we are good to go. But I want to make this show, I want you to guide this show. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions here because I think that the power of what can come out of this for the people who are going to watch this is unbelievable. I mean, when I got to know you, to give you guys a little background, Keith reached out to me on Instagram last year, around August, something like that?
Yeah, it was late summer.
Right around late summer last year, so maybe right around this time. And when we finally did reconnect, I was like, he said, yeah, I reached out to you last year, and I didn't even recall that. I went back into my Instagram messages, and he was correct. But long story short, the relationship formed almost immediately, right? It was like just instantly on the phone. We knew that there was just a lot of things in common. And a lot of good connection there. And as I got to know this guy, his story unfolded to me, and it literally seemed unbelievable to me based on the person that I know today. And he's super open about telling the story, which is admirable in itself and honorable in itself. Because I think that, stories like this really help people, right? No matter what they're going through at the time, it helps them realize how perspective, the title of this show, how perspective truly can change their life. And so, the title of this show, What If Heaven Was Nothing More Than a New Pair of Glasses, is a great way to describe your journey. So, Keith, welcome to the show, man. And I want you to just start off by telling people a little bit about your story, almost starting with your background and upbringing, your childhood, your early adult life.
So yeah, I'm the oldest of 7 kids. I got parents who love me. I work with them today, and I grew up doing the same thing I do now. My dad was a contractor, and the church-going people gave me a place to stay and prayed with me every night. And I grew up pretty happy. I got married early. The big family vibe, because there's 7 of us, just kind of carried over into the work. And actually, I got married at 20, which is a little early for most people, but my parents got married early, so that's what we do in my family. And life just took off. I started going and eventually ended up getting a divorce in my late 20s, and walked a path of of some trials, and we'll probably get into a little bit more of that. But, long story short is, I live the same life today that I lived then. And ultimately today, in the same place with the same people and the same life, I have a different perspective, and I'm just happy.
Yeah, awesome, man. And I think it's important for everybody to realize, like, almost every story that you hear that goes from, a lot of people have what we refer to as a normal upbringing. Everybody has their own definition of normal, right? But
Yeah.
a normal upbringing, and then, at some point things kind of go off the rails a little bit, or, and how much that is varies for everybody. And then, things kind of come full circle. And so, for Keith, I've had the honor of meeting Keith's family, and his parents are just incredibly special people. And as we get into this story, you'll probably realize how special they are. But Keith tells me the story of kind of how he grew up, and everything is exactly how you would want it to be, right? And then things just kind of took a turn. And so if you don't mind, let's spend a couple of minutes talking about those darker days for you, and kind of how you ended up in that situation. And then just give the people that are watching a few examples of some of the things that you went through during those times, to kind of open their eyes to how bad it can be, and then also how great you can come back from those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I got a divorce at 29. I didn't realize that, if you don't choose to actively live a life that's principle and value filled, that eventually you're going to go off the rails, and you don't know where it happened. Because it happened a long time before I picked up the habit of using heavy narcotics. I was going through a divorce and hanging out at the bar, which at 29 I'd never done. And I actually, to be honest, I kind of enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the ambiance of just everything about the bar scene. And if you hang out in the barbershop, you get a haircut. That's what some of my friends say. And I hung out in the barbershop too long. And eventually, if you hang out with low-hanging fruit, you become one of them. And July 3rd of 2013, I had, and I tell people today, like, this is my first spiritual experience. I was riding home in a pickup from a work trip, and I switched seats in the pickup, and the guy that I was riding with, I didn't know that he was doing drugs, and we switched seats, but we don't switch drinks, and he put drugs in his drink. And we switch, I drink it, and everything in my life changed. That one moment, everything went just euphoric. All the pain of my divorce went away. All the pressure from everything in my life lifted, and it was on. For the next 820 days, I didn't miss a day. I used anything and everything somebody could put in front of me, and my primary choice was methamphetamines, and I traded everything in life. I traded it all in to just get that next high, that next fix, so that I didn't have to feel how I felt. And it was a slow spiral at the beginning. I thought at the beginning that if I just did that I was just hurting. I wasn't hurting anybody else, and it felt good, and so why wouldn't I want to do it? And as time went on, I traded, and I use the term traded well, like purposefully. I chose to trade my serenity and my house and my retirement and everything of real value in for the next fix. And slowly and steadily just burned my life to the ground. And I realized today that was something that was necessary, because if I didn't burn everything down, then I would have somehow thought that I was responsible for keeping it where it was, and that's just not the case. So the culmination ended. I got arrested 6 times in 7 months. 3 times in 13 days was the last one, and I remember laying on that jail cell floor, and I was a coward. I run from my problems. And I don't like having problems, not uncommon to most people, but I just leave them. That's my fix. And I remember laying on that floor, and I don't know if I'd ever said an honest prayer in my life. And I said, God, if I can't die, then you need to help me. And that little bit of willingness was just enough to blow the doors off my life and literally flip it on end and just make it into something that it is today. That I look around now and I'm like, I don't even know how I got here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, man. I mean, Keith and I have a lot of conversations around spirituality, and I think, man, if and it's I have a similar story about how God came into my life, right? But you just got to open the door just about that much, man. It
Yeah.
doesn't, you don't have to fling the door wide open from a
No.
man to come rolling in and make a huge impact. It's just, you just got to ask for a little, just ask a little bit, just leave that door cracked, and man, next thing you know, life just changes in an instant, right? And it's amazing how it can change. So one of the questions that I really wanted to ask is, was there, and you talk about on that jail cell, was that the lowest moment, or were there other moments, that kind of, just kind of shocked you, and you knew in that minute, even if, because a lot of people tell the story like it wasn't in that minute that their life changed, but it was in that minute they knew it had to. Was there an instance where that was the case for you?
Yeah, that was just the moment that I knew it had to change. I just picked up in the circles I run in. I just picked up the willingness to consider that there was another way to live. There was a whole bunch of moments where I hit, the quote unquote rock bottom. One of them was having the sheriff knock on my door and say, "Hey, by the way, you haven't paid for your house in a year and a half, and it's time you go." And I was like, "Well, but I paid for it for like 13 years. Isn't that enough?" I was kind of insulted that they would kick me out of a house that I paid for. And somebody pointed out to me after that they just wanted the house that you weren't paying for back.
You thought you built up enough goodwill in all those times, right?
Yeah. And that was just the transactional way that I lived life. I thought I stored up a little bit of bonus time in my whole, the totality of my life. That was one of them. I'd like to sit here and tell you that I was just this ethical addict that didn't steal from everybody he knew. But the reality is that's not true. I stole from everybody, from my grandma to my parents to the people down the street, anybody that I could, because I honestly thought I was owed. I thought if you knew how I was living and how I felt inside, then you'd be okay with what I was doing. And there was no bottom that I couldn't make comfortable by rationalizing those thoughts in my mind. And so every time I'd go do something, whether it was steal money or steal food from a store, or even to the point of stealing other things from other people, that I knew that I would tell that I stole your stuff. What are you going to do? I thought that I was due that, because that's in my mind. It made sense. I can look at it now and shake my head and go, I don't know where I got that idea. But I do know that it was 100%. Every single one of those things was necessary to take that next step down to the floor of reality. Because I lived in this facade that I was a victim. That that if you felt like I did sober, that you would be okay with me doing these things to you, because I needed that relief. I didn't know how to cope with life.
Yeah, and guys, for those of you, I know some of you who are on this stream right now, know Keith, and so this story is far more shocking when you know him personally than when you're looking at a guy on the screen that maybe you guys don't know. But the guy he is today runs an incredibly successful asphalt paving business. That's how I was blessed to get to know him. We have become very good friends, but the guy is just an unbelievable human being today, an unbelievable son, an unbelievable business leader, a great uncle, a good brother, all of these things. And so I think that, the power of this show and what I'm trying to do for other people by doing this every morning at 7:30 is to give people, that outlook on what changing their perspective can do for them, right? Just that in an instant, you decide to look at life through a different lens, right? Or the title of today's show, what if heaven was nothing more than a new pair of glasses? So can you talk to me about, that conversation we had that day when you brought up that exact phrase and where those specific words came into your life.
Yeah, there's a book called that. The guy's name's Chuck C. that wrote it, and he talks about, and he got sober years and years and years ago. But where it came from is it talks about the principle of this guy that was miserable. He had this wife and this house and this job that he hated, and he wrote, and he honestly felt like he needed to do something about it. And he tried drinking. That didn't work. He thought the thoughts of suicide and checking out the quote unquote easy way. But again, those of us who have those thoughts, a lot of times we're too cowardly to do anything about them. And I read this book and his perspective. He was sitting in a recliner in his house, looking out the window with the same wife and the same house that he hated years before. And the thought came to him. He said, "What if heaven is nothing more than a new pair of glasses? It's just a new perspective on life." And that is so true of my life today. I live in the same place that I did all of those things. I got arrested in the same town that I live in multiple times, and the amazing thing that is occurring is that same truth that guy had is true in my life today. I got the same family. I got the same brothers and sisters, the same parents, the same roads I drive, the same job. But before I was miserable and I hated the guy that was in the mirror. I couldn't stand looking at him. So much so that in the old house that I lived in, I took mirrors and anything reflective off of the walls. And now the same person in the same life, in the same place, I just have like this new purpose to live.
And so let's talk about the business side of things specifically, man, and then we're gonna get into some of the life stuff, because I think the life stuff, the life part of your journey is far greater than anything that is business related, right? And we both always agree on that business gives us a means to live, but ultimately it's what we do personally and what we experience personally in life that really makes this life so great and allows us to be so fulfilled. And so talk about from that time of and going to rehab, getting yourself kind of straightened out. From that day forward, how long has that been, and what does that journey look like? Because I want people to understand, the most amazing part of your story for me is just how quickly this has all turned for you. Because I think a lot of people go through similar things of what what you've gone through, or maybe not even quite as far down the hole, right, as you were. And you were able to pull yourself out in such a short period of time. So I want you to kind of tell that part of the story in the last handful of years here.
Yeah. So actually, today is 3 years and 10 months since the day that I entered rehab. I went September 30th of 2015. I was a day late to rehab, like most good alcoholics and addicts. I was faced with a couple of options by, a bunch of people give you options when you're not listening in life. But the one that I heard was from my attorney, because I kept adding more and more problems to my life. And he said, "Hey, you either need to go to rehab or you're going to end up in prison." And my question, and this is one that I still laugh at, my question was, are there girls in rehab? Because I hear there's no girls in prison. And so I chose rehab, and there just happened to be somebody in my life that had a referral to one, and I went, and it was the most transformative experience of my life. I didn't know this. I'm the oldest of 6 boys, and I'd never really had friends that were guys. I didn't trust them. I didn't know why. And I walk in there, and I sleep for a few weeks. I became the stinky kid in rehab. They had to tell me to shower. And my life slowly changed because I heard people tell my story in their words. Right? I heard them tell how they felt, but in their story, like in their circumstances, but I totally related with everything they were saying. And I came home, and I looked around, and I don't know if you've ever come out of, like, you come out of surgery and you don't know where you woke up at. That's exactly how it was when I got home. I got home from rehab, and I have parents that are super forgiving, and they let me move back in with them. And I looked around at the life that I'd basically been trying to tear down, and the business that I've been trying to destroy through my addiction. And I was like, where did everything go, and how did we get here? And it turns out that most of what I was doing was just destroying the business. So we looked around, and we went from, I don't know, five or six guys with a bunch of dilapidated equipment 3 years and 10 months ago, and almost every year since then we've doubled our business. We went up 60% last year, and we're doing really well this year. I don't know what it's going to end up at, but my friend Brian likes to tell me to not be a wimp and put a big number on that wall. But yeah, living that same life with intentionality and principles. Just, there's a saying that you say that you can't wake up and do everything the right way, and it's right there in the background. I forget
It's
what
right
it is.
there. Yeah, Keith got that made for me. It says you can't. It says it is impossible to wake up every day and do all the right things and get the wrong result.
Yeah,
And
that's
it is true. It's and you're a testament to that, right? You chose at some point that you were going to take this new path, right? That path, and brother, I mean, it literally, it's crazy to me, like, to hear your story, because I didn't know that guy, right? I only know the guy that I see today. And the depth of the conversations. I tend to measure my friendships with people and my relationships with people based on the depths of the conversations that we're able to have. And I mean, dude, it's just incredible to have a friend like you, to have somebody, that we talk business. We're in the same business. I coach Keith's team and Keith and his company through Top Contractor School, but it's far more than just a business relationship, and when I got the honor of meeting your parents, it got even better, right? It was like, man, this is, and I've said this publicly several times, but when I came back from that trip in Portland, I always knew that I had an ideal customer I was looking to help, and it is Keith and his family, just because of their story, because of Keith's story, because of their where their company came from. 2008 was not friendly to you guys, correct?
No, we lost everything but the house.
Yeah, so they lost everything in 2008. Keith decides he's going to go on this path of non-righteousness for a period of time. And I say that, guys, and I think it's incredibly, again, honorable and just amazing that you're willing to share your story, man, because there's so many people out there that have a tough time seeing the perspective of life through the right lens. And I want people to realize from your story that it literally changes in an instant. And it changes when you decide to look through that new pair of glasses. And that's it, man. And listen, for us, for Keith and I, we're both believers, and that, for me, I think that plays a big part in it. I think you would agree for yourself as well. It's like, and again, I'm not telling you what to believe. That's not what this show is about. It's just, but without some level of faith in whatever it is you choose to believe in, I don't believe that any of this is possible, right? And so, for me, and I've shared this with you before, I think that spirituality, religion in general, is hope and faith when you may not have any. And for you, I think that part of your story is just, incredibly powerful. That, in those moments where most people would have caved and just ended up on that path. I mean, this is a guy that you're looking at in the camera. He's the better part of statistics, because there's plenty of statistics that go the other direction. And today, for him to be running a thriving business. And you know, for you guys that are watching, I know Keith won't nearly tell it the way that it deserves to be told, but the culture of caring within this guy's business and the perspective that he is providing to other guys. And there are people, you know, that work in your company that are second chance guys, right? It's like, you know, and those people, you know, you give them an opportunity, and there's a lot of guys on your crew, right, that are thriving and just doing a great job. And man, it's just an honor to see not just you, man, but your whole family kind of, you know, take this path and you know, have such a powerful perspective and impact on other people. And so I have this one question, and I think it's a really good question, but what is the one emotion that you would describe how you feel when you look back on that journey, you know, from all the places that you've been? What is the one emotion that you would tie to how that makes you feel?
From where I was to where I am now.
Yeah.
The one emotion I would, we're going to be probably sound a little weird when I say it. It's only come recently, since I've owned my past, and it's become one of my greatest assets, and being able to reach people. I didn't realize the power that could come from me just sharing my failures, basically. But there's a huge sense of ownership and pride in owning who I am, because when I owned who I am and had a little bit of pride about where I've come from, then I could understand that the man in the mirror that was looking back at me was somebody that was not just okay, but he was healthy and thriving in life.
Man, if you guys didn't catch that and let that one pour deep down into your soul, because the power of that message, and I wasn't expecting that answer, by the way, but the power of that message, I think, is true for so many. It is, and I think we all struggle with it, man. I mean, I read books all the time that get you a little closer to realizing what that man in the mirror really is, who he really is, right? Or woman in the
Yep.
mirror. And, you know, the power that perspective brings to your life is literally unmeasurable. Because I think that once you realize that it's okay, that no matter where you are right at this moment, you are an incredible human being. I mean, everybody. I'm not talking about Keith right now. You're an incredible human being right where you are. God has chosen you to be the way that you are. And so, you know, once you get that into your soul and you realize that, you know, you are a good person and you have a lot of talents and you have a lot of, you know, things that you have to offer people, man, life just changes. And when the more comfortable you become with that person you're looking at in the mirror, the more impact you can make on the world around you, right? One last question, and then we're going to play that video for everyone that I think will be a great way for people to go into their morning. Describe in your own words, man, the power of perspective for the people watching and what that power has done for your life.
Perspective is the conscious choice to choose hope over what the fear that goes in your mind. You were talking about the belief in something that's bigger than you. You know, I just happen to call it God because it's easier to explain to people if I call it God. The perspective of when you're living life in a hope-filled environment, I believe that there's a greater being out there. It takes my fear, drives it with hope, and turns it into faith. Right? And perspective is the vehicle that gets me there, because I could choose to take any number of paths, but does does any other path get me where I want to go? Does it go with my stated goals, and does it go with the principles in life that I follow, or does it take me over to somewhere that I don't know because I don't understand it and I don't think I get? Really, I don't think I earn it, or am I not worthy of it? Perspective is just choosing the hope every day that, you know what, maybe this is my life and I can have more and I can be better and I can be successful. And it's success that doesn't mean money. I don't want people to understand that. Personal success is far more important in my life than any business stuff. Business is just a means to an end. But perspective is the conscious choice and taking the road that gets you to where you want to go with hope.
Yeah, you said a lot there, man. But I think I think also to go to your point, success. Most people are programmed to think about success as money, and I say this a lot in our coaching exchanges. But to me, success is fulfillment. It's about when you lay down your head on your pillow at night, how fulfilled do you feel for what you did? And most of that, by the way, is rooted in how much you were able that day or that week or that month to serve others. And above everything else, I think that I want people to walk away from this interview. Really, we didn't dig into this much, but it's important for you guys to know not just what Keith has done for himself and his business and all the people that work for him, but this guy is an incredible just servant leader to the world. I mean, he goes and does mission trips around the world and helps people in places that need it desperately. And as your friend, man, I get chills just talking about it. But you've inspired me to be a better person, and that is truly, in my mind, what friendship is about. It's about helping each other find a higher gear, and you have done that for me in more ways than one, probably far more than what you realize. So from the bottom of my heart, man, thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for being a great guy. Thank you for being an awesome client and being coachable all the time. But most of all, thank you for being a great friend and an inspiration to me.
Likewise, my friend.
So we're going to leave you guys with a video that Keith actually sent this to me. We exchange a lot of inspirational stuff, but boy, this one is unbelievable. Just I don't even know how to describe this one, man. And I don't know how long we'll let the video go, but I'll tell you what, I've been listening to this thing every morning, almost every morning. I'm not gonna tell a lie live here, but almost every morning, and it gets me fired up and motivated to go out and just crush every single day. And I hope for your guys' sake that it does the same for you. So let me, hopefully I can get this right. This show's new to me, guys, so bear with me here, and we're gonna do our best to make this video happen here. But this is a guy named Billy Allsbrook, and he does these videos, and holy mackerel, man, are they powerful. So let's see if we can get this correct here. Hopefully everybody can see this.
You can tell the level of faith a person has by the size of their dreams. True believers dream bigger and aim higher, for they know the size of the God they serve. If you want to accomplish amazing things and experience all that life has to offer, you must set enormous, almost to the edge of insanity, goals for yourself. The age of being practical is over. Dreaming with boldness takes the limits off of God. It allows him to work the miracles that he is so willing to do. Don't set your goals in relation to your own abilities. Set your goals in accordance with the God you serve. And let me tell you this, all things are possible with God. So if you align with Him, if you align with His principles, you are blessed and unstoppable. Now let's go to the Word. Now to Him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. Now notice that last statement. According to the power that worketh in us. That means everything you need to accomplish your dream is already inside you. Wake up! That's the secret. It's already in you. When you gain revelation to that power that's in you, there's not a wall, there's not an obstacle, there's not a mountain that can stand in your way. Because all things are possible to him that believeth. And when you believe that kind of way, and you serve that kind of God, you are blessed and unstoppable. You have been granted through grace the power and authority to accomplish your divine assignment. He has placed seeds of greatness inside of you, and with that anointing, all things are possible. God does not want his ambassadors walking around on earth sick, broke, and defeated. There's no glory for him in that. He made you to prosper in every area so that you can give a shining testimony to the world of his greatness. Every victory, blessing, and success you experience is designed in some way to put you in position to minister to the lost. He has empowered you to succeed so that you can have greater access to bigger and bigger platforms to pronounce his glory. You are a soldier in the mighty army of God, and no great general would send his soldiers out into battle empty-handed. He has fully equipped you to be victorious. Your weapons are faith, mind, and the spoken word. These are the three most powerful weapons in existence, and nothing can stand in the way of them. These are the same weapons Jesus performed all his miracles with, and you have complete access to them. John 14:12 says, very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. Now if the word of God promises you something, then you can rest assured in full faith that you have it. The power's in you. Go now and change the world.
Well, that, my friends, is a great way to end. So thank you guys for tuning in. Much, much, much appreciated. And we will see you again tomorrow morning here on Morning Perspective. Thank you, Keith. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. Hope you guys enjoyed the interview.